Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pony Transformation panel. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. All right.
I can hear you.
All right. Ace, next slide.
I can hear you all right.
Okay, so let's pop us over to our little frame here. There we go. Pony Transformation.
There we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pony Transformation panel. I am your host, Chocolate Pony, for this panel, and surprisingly, I'm not doing the transformative panel at this con. I'm doing the transformation panel at this con. Who knew? Anyways, did you know there's never been a pony transformation done at any con, live or online? So this is new ground for us. The very first pony transformation panel. I have selected a nice round list of pony panelists. All of us are pony transformation artists, and I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. So, Ace, how about you go first?
Hello, my name is Acesential, otherwise known as TF Central. I am the guy who does a lot of pony transformation artwork. If you've seen some Asian-looking guy in a red polo turning into Twilight Sparkle, that is most likely me. So, hello.
All right, and Daff, you're next.
Hi, I'm Daff. I do a good amount of transformation stuff. I've branched out from pony and I've been doing a lot of werewolves recently, but in general, I just do a lot of pony art as well.
All right, perfect. And of course, Icaron, you're last.
Hello, I'm Icaron. You might also know me as Griffius. I sometimes pose both of them. I tend to focus on mainly show-style transformation art, and particularly things on the weirder side of the spectrum. So if you ever see any Pony TF that's made you just go, what the heck? That was probably me. And yeah.
Perfect. And if you guys didn't know, Icaron and I, we used to be business partners and roommates, but we moved.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, on to the next slide.
All right, then. So let's click over next slide. Boom.
So, of course, to give us a little background on this panel, we want to talk about probably our pre-pony interest in transformation, because all of us came to pony with already some background, interest in the transformation genre in general. And during this time, the two really big places transformation was common were with online fan art and, of course, media like Animorphs. So I guess we have a selection of equine slides to kind of give a little broad scale of some of the pony or equine transformation we came across beforehand. So again, I'm going to try and make this a free-for-all discussion panel. So if you guys want to pitch in, tell us about how you found TF.
My weird story is weird because I got into TF in a really strange way because I was really into dragons as a kid, and I just remember I got this big poster, and it was like a really big scary dragon. My dad was like, "You really want that? That looks really scary." And I told him, "Yeah, no, it's really cool. Dragons are cool." But when I looked at that dragon poster, I wasn't thinking like, "Man, that dragons are cool." I was thinking, "I want to be that dragon."
Yeah, I had a similar sort of thing the first time I'd watched Spirited Away. You know, seeing Haku turn into a dragon, I was just like, "Oh man, that's cool. I want to do that." That was
it wasn't dragons for me. I can blame the Scholastic Book Fair at my elementary school, particularly with the Goosebumps books, and one of them was called Chicken. You might have seen that. The whole book was dedicated to turning into chickens, which may have influenced why I'm into birds so much. But I got that, and also had a poster of the cover for that book that came with it from the Scholastic Book Fair, and it was nice and weird and probably influenced me for the coming years, and then that led me online.
And for me, I think it's also start off with a bird one. I saw a poster for the cover of the third Animorph book where Tobias turns into a red-tailed hawk, and I got that poster for free without even buying the book, and I just started staring at that poster for such a long time. And it just so happened earlier this week I interviewed the artist for that cover, the Animorph book cover artist. I got to interview him and talk about the transformation process. So that was pretty
David
cool.
Mattingly had a real special style with that kind of TF artwork, and probably really defined the TF sequence genre before anyone even knew it was a genre.
And actually, I guess he actually has a lot of his prints online, so if you want to check them out. But we're here to talk about ponies, so let's go to the next slide and talk about transformation in canon.
The show has lots of it. It's kind of crazy.
All right. So, as we
That's for
said,
sure.
we had some background interest in transformation before we found ponies. We don't have to get into the whole story of how we found ponies. I'm sure you guys hear that story all the time. But since we were fans who found pony, maybe we could point out the big instance in the early days of us watching the show. Like, what big transformation moments stuck out for you guys?
Okay.
Well, honestly, for me, the biggest thing that stuck in my eye was Discord in season 2 getting turned to stone, and that influenced my art a lot and was part of the directed me towards drawing ponies over drawing just regular animal trans, which I had done a little bit of before that.
For me, this will be heresy for some people, but because of what I particularly like to draw, that is people, like humans turning into pony characters. The one that stood out to me was Equestria girls, and how that Twilight turned into a human upon going into the human world, and I was like, okay, cool. Can we see this in reverse too? That was for me.
I think my first one was I don't know. There wasn't like too much transformation in the early show that was like super getting me. Flutterbat was pretty solid.
Ooh,
I like Flutterbat a lot, but the hippogriffs are absolutely my favorite as far as transformation goes.
The hippogriffs are top notch, and I speak with no bias at all for birds, but they're good.
Yeah, or mermaids.
Right. That actually, I think, should bring us to our next slide. So I actually was able to break down the instances of transformation in the show into separate categories, which we could go over. So first, let's talk about the transformation as an ability of the species. So, of course, we know changelings have the ability to transform. We just mentioned the hippogriffs. And, of course, the god of chaos himself, Discord. Yeah. So when we talk about the ability of the species, this is the ability that these specific species have, the ability to transform their form, whether it's a specific form or varied, like Changeling in the Discord. So, you guys I guess you guys all mentioned these critters over here. Icaron, you mentioned Discord, even though you love him transforming to a statue, he could also turn to other stuff, is that correct?
Yeah, well, yes, and also him turning into a statue was certainly not of his own volition. But when he's free and out about to do his own thing, he basically is formless, if you ask me. He chooses to look the way that he looks. And I don't know, there's something about that free, chaotic nature of just assuming the form that you want that is attractive to me.
Okay, actually, I have to ask all of you guys this. We are fans of transformation. We are transformation artists. We have our own pony sonas. Why don't any of us have a changeling sona? I'm surprised none of us have a changeling sona as our main character.
Well, I have a friend who has a changeling sona, but that's something different. That's just her.
So my Pegasus saga, I had used that character for the longest time, and in everywhere that I roleplayed that character, I had them as a secret changeling, kind of infiltrating things, although I never really portrayed it in art except for a very brief Tumblr phase where I tried to start up one of those Ask blogs that was going to go into all sorts of story with that, but just never got around to making it official.
Yeah, I mean, I think my OC probably would have been a hippogriff if they had been there earlier on, but changelings, I don't know, they never quite hit it for me.
Yeah, it really is a shame that the hippogriffs came in so late in the series that we didn't get to see much of them, especially in the mainline show. I would have loved to see more with Silverstream.
Oh, that would have been nice.
Oh yeah, especially since they cover both the air aspect, like the bird-like creatures you like, Icaron, as opposed along with sea creatures, which is another big common, I think a growing area of what people like when they look at animal transformation, or aquatic and marine creatures.
And I do want to point out that I find it interesting with the hippogriffs is that it's not an intrinsic power that they have. They can only do it because of that artifact that Queen Novo had, and they can also only do it when they have necklace that they're using. That's what gives them the power to do that.
And
that that it allows them to bestow it on other creatures that come down to visit their land. They can turn into the fish things too.
I think that brings us to our next slides. The like you were saying, Discord can, and the hippogriffs they can transform, but sometimes they aren't able to transform on their own volition. So there are cases, especially in the show, where a character is transformed maybe against their will, or they purposely did not want to transform. So I guess the first one we want to talk about is environmental effects. So of course we got Poison Joke in the first season. While there wasn't really too big of a transformation, aside from maybe Appletini, Applejack turning micro. It's not hard to believe that Poison Joke could possibly turn these ponies into other creatures and maybe into objects as well. We've seen fan art of that. The other one where they're specifically turned to inanimate forms are the cockatrice that turns them into stone.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love that whole episode with the cockatrice that turned Mudbriar into stone and basically made Maud's dream come true.
Oh my god.
You complete me, she said.
Oh, and I guess Icaron people are noticing yours in the chat.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is one of mine. That was drawn immediately after the Swamp Fever episode aired, and I was so upset that they didn't go into the actual transformation part of that, because they led up through that whole episode saying, oh, at the end of this fever, you turn into a tree. And then all they gave us was Zecora with a couple leaves sticking out of her head, and that just didn't satisfy me, so I had to rectify that situation on my own. So that's what brought that picture around.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly.
And I guess the next involuntary change would be the next slide, where the change is as a punishment. So as opposed to the cockatrice, which would transform you, and it's just a natural critter of the fauna and flora of the area. There is purposeful transformation, and surprisingly, it's the good guys using it as a punishment. So of course we've seen our villains. That seems to be the default punishment for villains in the show, and even Discord mentioned, I don't turn ponies into stone.
And wait,
as if that was something that Celestia did basically all throughout the time that Discord's known her, which brings up big questions about exactly what's going on in that statue garden of hers.
And it's not even just meted out as punishment. What's his name? Rockhoof was even specifically requested, hey, turn me to stone. I feel useless here. And
then Twilight was gonna do it. She got the spell and was about to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of a surprisingly dark touch upon like veteran mental health in MLP.
Yeah. And it's not the first time they've managed to allude to much darker subjects with a lighter tone. Yeah. Although that one was definitely pretty obvious.
Yeah.
That actually leads naturally into the next slide, where most of the transformation seems to be Twilight's magic.
Oh, yep.
So Twilight is a transformation catalyst.
Yeah.
Requesting Twilight to turn you into a statue or a griffin seems to be very, very common.
Yep. I'm with Rainbow Dash on that. That's the best way to use the magic. Turn everyone into griffins.
I mean, there might be a slight reason why I keep drawing myself turning into Twilight. Maybe.
Oh, is that so?
We'll get into that later.
Okay. But yeah, Flutterbat. Flutterbat is good.
So I guess it does kind of bring out Twilight's magic, sometimes used as a catalyst for the plots of the episodes, and so we could see the example of Rarity getting wings, Flutterbat occurring because of Twilight's magic, and of course we see the irresponsibility for magic. She turned a sentient frog into an orange. How's he going to survive? Is he going to run away? And look at that picture. Yeah, he's longing. Look at him. Look at the other. He's long. Look at him. He's so sad on that lily pad by himself and longing for the sweet embrace of death. All right. Oh yeah. Of course, they got turned to Breezies because they had to sell Breezy toys. I think so. Yeah. There we go.
Am I remembering wrong, or didn't Discord turn Fluttershy briefly into an orange or something?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So orange transformation must be another default. Yeah, orange transformation must be another default in this show then.
Fruit transformation. Yeah.
Right,
well, Twilight turns a frog into an orange. Discord turns Fluttershy into an orange.
It's funny because that's also something that a common trope in the TF fandom, at least among the people who do inanimate transformations, is fruit seems to be a common focus. I don't know why, but it is.
All right. So let's go to the next slide because this brings up, I think, all of our favorite parts about transformation. So the one thing we like is called the post-transformation reaction, where when someone's transformed, they react to the new form right away. And most commonly, they are looking at their hands. So if you see any of our 4 artwork, most likely you've seen artwork where the person is transforming and looking at their hands. Ace, you specifically mentioned you love the concept of Equestria girls and wish they happened in reverse, which it did in the show. The human Twilight coming to the pony world still had her glasses on, which is another funny trope that we love doing in our art. Having some human clothing still carry over into the new.
All of her things became horse things. It's pretty good. Our hands. It's pretty understandable why all the characters end up looking at their hands. Those are like one of the biggest, clearest. This thing says I'm human. And if this changes, something is different. Imagine going from hands to hooves.
Other parts of the body might be more visible than hands.
Yeah, and the best part about going from hands to hooves is you don't have to draw hands anymore.
Yeah. Hooves are easier than hands.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out, I love that the chat is just spamming pictures of all these different transformations.
Oh my god.
All right. I guess we will probably get into the theme of human to pony transformation as we talk about the art, but I'm going to quickly mention the next slide, which, if you guys have seen, I made a new video. I made a video essay on the topic of inanimate transformation where I kind of covered the history of transformation a bit. But in most franchises, especially since the 60s onward, the character normally being transformed is sometimes seen as the gag character, or if they're all transformed, the gag character is always the one who has kind of the most humorous or worst form, and that has some interesting implications for Spike. First off, when he turned to a pufferfish, of course that's kind of humorous and played up, but then when all the other ponies go to the human world and they turn to humans, but Spike turns into a dog, that kind of, questions his status in the world, doesn't it?
Yeah, it basically makes him out to be Twilight's pet instead of Twilight's assistant.
Or Twilight's younger brother.
Oh.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they're not that far off in age. I mean, Twilight got him as an egg when she was a young foal, so they've basically been together the whole time that Twilight would have memories, and yet he's the pet.
He's the pet.
It's what he deserves.
Oh
no, I also, it brings up another thing that I'm not sure how many of us have covered it in some of our art themes, but the unequal transformations, where it's like everyone's transforming to cool forms, but one person always has the bad transformation.
Oh yeah, no, that is always something that's kind of like touched in like humorous, like humorous stories or what have you.
I think a good example is the Teen Titans TV show where Mumbo turns all the Titans animals. Of course, Beast Boy can already shapeshift into animals, so they turn him into a lamp.
I remember that episode. Yeah.
That's bringing up that thing from, what was it, The Incredibles Syndrome was saying, if everybody's special, no one is. So I guess if you don't have at least one person that has a derpy, dumb form, then you're not really going to be able to fully appreciate the fact that all the other ones are really awesome.
Yeah. All right, so I guess next slide, because that covers that covers a lot of the instances of transformation in the show. So how do we, the fans, transform in a transformative manner, no pun intended, these instances of transformation into our art? And of course, I have this featured on the slide is a collection of the other three artists here in the chat, and I think it actually gives a good variety: inanimate transformation, human to pony transformation, and gender transformation. Three very common transformations that we all have touched on and we'll be discussing about. But let's go to the next slide and go back to some of our early transformation inspirations, because this slide, again, we have a collection of three specific images. Each of them also marks a specific type transformation is portrayed. So the first image, we have someone transforming into a unicorn after using a polymorph spell. This is what we like to call the post-transformation image. This is a person specifically right after they completely have transformed into their new form. And normally it shows them reacting to their new form. The second one, of course, is the anamorph cover. which is something that a lot of us transformation artists like because it gets to show the step-by-step transition from one form to another. And the last one is what we call the mid-TF reaction, or the mid-transformation art piece, in which, as opposed to portraying someone towards the end of the transformation or step-by-step, we show someone in the direct middle of the transformation reacting to these different forms, still having elements of the former human self, as well as a new form they're going to gain. So I think we all carry this stuff into our artwork. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I think all of us have drawn something from each of this category at least 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, but we all seem to have one of them that we tend to focus on.
Oh yeah.
I specifically like the post TF and mid TF a lot.
I tend to focus a lot on mid TF and sequences, not so much post TF.
I love doing sequences, but they just take so much work compared to just drawing a mid TF, and I never get around to doing them much. Although you do a lot more than most people I know, Ace.
Yeah. It helps that I can sketch pretty quickly. That's very conducive to it.
Yeah, right. I'm a big fan of the mid TF and especially middle face. Which is like when the face is partially transformed.
Yeah,
that's the big winner right there.
Middle. A lot of people. There are a lot of people out there who are into TF who do not like middle face. But like I know that Daph and I are very much in the camp of mid face TF. Hell, you can even see it in my little avatar on the top right. That like the mid face TF of Twilight there. Yep,
middle face.
Let's go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about transformation in the fandom. And since all 4 of us are artists, we're going to quickly try to, since we're most likely going to be talking about transformation in our art, but we want to cover the other aspects of the fandom. So let's first basically start off by saying almost everyone, whether unintentionally or unknowingly, has participated in some form of pony transformation. If you have a pony sona and you're trying to adapt your pony sona from your current form, that is, in a sense, a way of transforming your human self to a pony self, even if it's represented in a different manner. If you've ever role-played as a pony, whether it's a canon pony or your own original character, that is another form of transformation. The stream went down?
Yeah, is something wrong with the stream? People in the chat are saying the stream died.
Yeah, I just saw it.
That's weird. It's still, everything's good on our end here.
Hello.
Simo, what's wrong?
Hey, what's up?
Been kicked off the stream for some reason, so we're trying to find out what happened.
All right. Should I choose stop streaming and restart it or something?
You're OBSing, right?
Yes.
You're sending an OBS stream to us. Okay. For some reason, what we saw for a moment looked like part of a Zoom window.
That's weird.
But I'm wondering if that's just a latent frame from something on our end. Let me get back to you in like 3 minutes.
Gotcha.
Oh no! All right. Yeah, stream technical difficulty.
All right. I think things are going along in a good clip so far.
Yeah. I'm trying to see how much we want to leave for Q&A. Let's try to aim for... Okay. Oh, are we back?
Yep.
We are back.
Hello.
You are back.
Sorry
there you
about
go.
that.
Oh, perfect. Okay. We were back again. So we were talking about unintentional transformation. If you have a pony sona, if you ever roleplay as a pony, that is an unintentional type of transformation, and it also explores some of the areas of why we do like transformation. For one, transformation can be a form of escapism, and for another, it could be a form of expression. So if you guys notice, our fandom is very, very diverse. We have a lot of people who are of different orientations, of different identities, and the fact that people can use role-playing or having their pony sona represent a different gender of themselves, a different body type, a different morphology, a different personality, is a great way for people in the fandom to express different identities, maybe an identity that they might be longing to or they feel they're connected with deep down. And that's going to be something we're going to see explored when we go and cover the transformation. So let's go to the next slide and just talk about specifically transformation in the areas that are not visual arts before we move on to in visual art.
Yeah.
All right. So we want to at least, even though we are TF artists, we do want to respect the other people who have dabbled in transformation before in the other areas of our fandom. So specifically within fan music and fan fiction. And I think Icaron, you are really good at. You could cover the fan music portion, and Ace, you could cover the fan fiction portion.
All right.
That's okay.
Yeah, so like I do listen to a decent amount of Brony fan music, although I'm certainly no expert, nor am I a musician in any way, shape, or form. But I have noticed that transformation seems to be a theme that crops up, not frequently, but not infrequently either. And we have some examples like Daddy Discord by Madame Lefleur, which is all about Discord as the statue escaping free. That's a real good one. And one that's inspired me recently, of course, was Prototype VIP by Wooden Toaster. It was about ponies wanting to be slowly converted into robots and perfecting their form by replacing it with metal machine parts. And as it fits into other mass media, the idea of robotic transformations is quite prevalent. I mean, even in other shows like Westworld and things. And also, Amazon's Stories from the Loop has a robot transformation in it too, which just came out like a week ago. There's all sorts of themes that are coming into the Brony fan music, and yeah.
And in the writing side of things, yeah, in terms of fan fiction, transformation is a theme touched upon very often. There are plenty of stories that you can find on film fiction about ponies being turned into the opposite gender of being turned into another species. Some of the more well-known transformation fics out there, like Friendship is Optimal is one story that's named a lot, and perhaps the most well-known Pony TF fanfic in the fandom is a 5 score divided by 4 by a Twisted Spectrum, also a good friend of mine. It focuses on a group of humans that find themselves slowly turning into the ponies from the show, mainly the main 6, as well as Shining Armor and Big Macintosh, and that goes into a whole. That was very deeply into the themes of, like, how do you deal with, like, when your very species and gender are slowly changing. How do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with, like, the real world consequences of something like that? And also, what are the really cool things that can come up as a result when you're suddenly Rainbow Dash and you can fly compared to your human self, which was groundbound. So yeah, fan fiction is especially because of the nature of fan fiction as writing, it is very well equipped to deal with post-transformation reaction, which is not as easy to do when it comes to art. Art is very good at depicting the change itself, but when it comes to what happens afterwards, writing allows you to go much more in depth about, like, how the people react to it and what they do afterwards. That is harder to do with art unless you're diving into, like, a medium like comics.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's also why a lot of us, I know a lot of you actually do have longer stories in the description of your art to kind of represent this, what happens after the sequences are featured in your art.
Yeah, it's a great way to add extra context. They say an image is worth 1,000 words, but an image can only portray so much about what a character is thinking or what they're experiencing. And when you are able to add even just a short couple paragraphs of a vignette story, you can create so much more context and feeling with an image than you would by leaving it as an image alone. Stories really have a great way to connect to the human experience.
All right. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. I think each three of you would have a cover each of the next areas, and all of us could chime in. But so let's first talk about. So we seen what happened. We just mentioned what we saw in the music. Music explores a lot of themes, and the art is a great way to express what happens, the experience. So we as artists, we have to represent this in as few visuals as possible. So the best way to represent this is through, sometimes we do the sequences of the change. We like to look at the, like we say, post-transformation reaction. We also like the concept of having maybe clothing in the new form, or clothing ripping as they are transforming, or if we're turning to a smaller form, because human ponies are smaller than humans, sometimes the clothes gets baggy. And of course, some topics we like to talk about is when you transform. Let's say you transform into a pony. Does the mental change come along with it? If you transform into a canon character and you end up in the pony world, does that cause a reality change? So these are some of the topics we're going to like exploring later on, but we just want to mention them here so we could give you guys a brief overview of what we will cover. Next slide, please. And not just the themes, but the subject matter in these transformations. So, of course, like Ace was talking about, human to pony, or pony to human transformations. We have pony to other species transformation. I think Daff, you'll be good for covering the ponies to other gender transformations. And then Icaron and I, we could probably cover the pony to inanimate transformations.
Absolutely.
So we'll go to the next slide and talk about human to pony or pony to human transformation. And Ace,
Oh,
how about
boy.
you take it away?
Okay, so this, I guess you could say that this is my specialty, because I basically made my introduction into the whole TF scene by being like, there is not enough artwork of people being turned into ponies. And because I drew anime badly before ponies, I was like, I can draw people, I can draw ponies. Let me draw people turning into ponies. So that's what I basically did. For me especially, I tend to focus on doing a lot of artwork of characters into, people into particular characters from the show. There's also like artwork of people turning into like particular OCs, or more just generic representations of particular different species. But I personally tend to like doing characters in the show, because I always like the kind of angle of like trying to understand. It's like, okay, if someone like me was suddenly Twilight Sparkle, how would I react in that position? And how is it that me being that character, like how would me filtered through Twilight Sparkle emerge? Like I'm a big flight sim nerd. How would Twilight Sparkle being a flight sim nerd, how would that play out, you know? And beyond that, there's also just like what's interesting about seeing anatomy change, like how like the fingers come together into a hoof, how the face emerges outwards into a snout. I'm really, really like into like the particularities of like of how anatomy shifts and changes. So that's one of the big things I end up exploring, and that's kind of just been my thing. I've been doing this since like 2011, 12 at least, and I still find new ways and new things to do with it. So you probably won't see me change that up for a good while yet.
And I do want to point out this specific slide. Features both your artwork.
Oh yeah.
And I specifically chose these two images because one, we have a mid-transformation sequence, and the other, we actually have a sequence transformation transition. So it shows the wide range of transformations that you cover, and specifically, like you were saying, you like turning into canon characters. So these two are both turning into canon characters. And I think Icaron mentioned to me earlier, the world of ponies, it's mostly female. It's a matriarchal society. It's going to be mostly female. So if you turn into any canon character by happenstance, there is a high probability that you will also have a gender transformation, because bronies are predominantly identified as male, and most of the characters in the show are female. So if a brony turns into a pony in the show, then it's most likely to have a gender transformation, which leads us to our next one, which I think, Daph, you could cover pretty well.
Yeah, I can do that. I first got into actual gender transformation stuff when I drew my character as the opposite gender. There's a lot of really interesting implications when you start digging into it. When you start thinking sort of past the transformation and what happens afterwards, how it might affect the character's identity. It's always fun to see the reactions and stuff. So the shining armor picture that you see on the left, that's a pretty popular one. Gender transformations tend to have some really good reactions to them. But yeah, my biggest exploration of it came when I was doing an Ask blog for a while, just about characters who had been turned female. And I didn't really understand or have much experience with like trans issues before that, and that's sort of what actually introduced me to it when I started getting like fan mail from fans who were transgendered and saying that they could really click with that. So that was actually pretty humbling and was it was a pretty cool time. But yeah, lots of stuff to explore with gender transformation. Tends to work really well in stories as well because you can go past the transformation for a long time after that, or in a more long form comic like I did.
Yeah, I think that actually brings up a good point because even if the person doing the transformation art might not be trans, it might appeal to a lot of people through trans issues at the moment. I myself, I identify as non-binary, and I think transformation is a great way to actually explore those different realms of what you could potentially be.
I definitely agree there because I also identify similarly, non-binary.
Same. Most of my sonas have been female at some point, so.
And again, the images I chose, Daff was the one who specifically suggested the Shining Armor one, and that's a great one because it doesn't involve any humans, so it's Shining Armor, a very masculine male character in the show, turning into a more feminine figure. Whether he identifies as a he still in that form, or she, again, it opens rooms for a lot of new storytelling opportunities. And this one is specifically a post-transformation reaction. One of the most common ways to display post-transformation reaction, both in art and fiction, is looking at yourself in the mirror afterwards. Like, you don't even know you're transformed until you look into a mirror. And then the other one, of course, is another mid-transformation image as well. All right, let's go to the next one, which is something that Icaron and I particularly enjoy. Inanimate Transformation, and again, another representation. This time we're showing one of Daft's work, which is a comic. Comics are another way to display sequence by sequence images, and of course we have another post-transformation artwork. So Icaron, how about you take this one away then?
Yeah. So I think that Inanimate Transformation is one of the ones that can be more confusing to people who don't already understand or know about it. From the outside looking in, you might it's commonly asked, like, why would you want that? Why would you want to be turned into stone or turned into a mannequin or turned into a plushie or things like that? Wouldn't it be so boring not being able to move? But there's a few ideas that can really help explain it. And probably first of them is that there's a thrill at the loss of control and agency. And we as humans are so used to having absolute agency over our choices, our movement, and ownership of ourselves. And all of that's lost when you become an inanimate object, providing an extremely new experience and a new viewpoint that has very few parallels to the things that we might already understand. And also, inanimate objects, they have an ascribed purpose to them. One common lament of the human experience is that we lack intrinsic and a clearly identifiable purpose, which is something that most inanimate objects have just on their own. Like, have you become art, a statue, a painting? You know, that your purpose is to be appreciated. If you're functional, like furniture, a chair, a dress, well, you serve that function as that object. Do you fulfill a task? If you're a mannequin, you're there for sewing. If you turn into a cart, you're for moving cargo. If you turn into a piece of cake, you're a piece of food or a piece of fruit. Your purpose is to be delicious. So all those things have a specific purpose, which you're effortlessly capable of fulfilling just by virtue of being that object. And that's a very unique thing that comes with inanimate transformation.
And I see some people in the chat are a bit confused for the love of inanimate. If you guys want to go more in depth, I have made a video essay. Just type in Inanimate Transformation on Google, on YouTube, and if it's under my name, Transformative, it should come out. But I like what you are describing. The idea of, as a human, we don't really, we have free will, which is, ironically enough, sometimes not seen as a good thing, because if we have too many choices, too many opportunities, we might not know where our direction in life is going. We might not know where our purpose is. And animate objects have a specific purpose. And that actually looks at the scale of all the different forms we're looking at. So if we look back at the earlier stuff, turning into a big, strong pony or turning into a dragon, that's seen as an empowering transformation. And then when we go to the next one, we were talking about the gender transformation. That's transformation as exploration. And then for inanimate transformation, this is kind of a depowering transformation, but depowering might not be bad in some cases. It's another realm of escapism where we could explore perhaps being helpless or useful in these specific forms. And this is actually where I want to go next. So the next slide, we're going to cover these psychological scales and the division some of us TF artists have in specifically focusing on transformation, because I know some of us like portraying transformation in a certain manner, and some of us like portraying it in another manner. So let's quickly go down this list of transformation themes that we like to cover. So first is the forced transformation versus voluntary. So forced transformation is you might have annoyed a witch. You stumbled upon her gingerbread house, and now she's going to turn you into a frog as a curse. So that is a forced transformation. Voluntary is like, hey, look, there's this amulet. If you touch it, you're going to turn into a horse. Well, I'm going to touch it.
You know what you got yourself into.
Okay, which ones do you guys like, forced or voluntary?
Oh, ooh, man.
Definitely forced.
Contextual. They all have their benefits.
I've generally been on the side of forced, but like as of recently, I've been kind of wanting to explore more voluntary things, just kind of like just to explore more in terms of what I do in terms of TF.
Yeah, my favorite thing kind of sits in between the two, sort of like a reluctant enjoyment. Like I didn't initially want this, but now that it's happening, I'm going to enjoy every moment of it. That's the way that I can see to look at it.
Yeah, if you can't have distress as a reaction, at least have surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, and then this goes into next one we covered a bit. Again, this is something definitely Ace seems to like a lot more, is do you transform a canon character, whether it's you turning into a canon character or the canon character turning to something else, or do you focus on original characters? So I guess quick round of answers from you guys.
Yeah, no, I really like to focus a lot on canon characters. Not that I have anything against doing OCs. It's just that that when we're working with a canon character, there's like a particular personality that I can kind of like overlay myself or another character onto and compare and contrast against. That's really the big thing for me.
All right, and then you're going to shift into the next slide. Or what were you going to say? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say that I tend to try to use like a mixture of both. It's really contextual as to which one's going to fit the story best. Sometimes you can find a canon character that really fits the slot. Sometimes you need an OC. It just depends.
Yeah, I specifically like the end result to resemble the person who turned into them, so that's why I tend to go for OCs myself.
All right, and actually, so each of these are going to be covered in the slide. So let's actually go to the next slide since we're on the topic of canon characters. So specifically, I noticed this in a lot of your art, Ace, and actually Icaron as well. Transforming into a canon character is okay. Couch. Comes with some baggage. So if you turn into Rainbow Dash, for example, do you now have Rainbow Dash's memories? Do you appear in her world? So are you now the actual Rainbow Dash of this new world, or are you a doppelganger of Rainbow Dash and you have to kind of play the role of Rainbow Dash and hide whenever she's around? Or does your world around you just completely disappear and you end up in the pony world? Or the other option, you turn into the Rainbow Dash, but you're still in your bedroom and you still have to go to work. So there's a lot of options that comes. There's the mental change, the reality filter, and the reality change. So Ace, since this seems to be your territory,
for me,
talk about that.
Let's see. When in my earliest years, especially because I was focused a lot on canon characters, I liked people becoming the canon characters in their entirety. Like they are now, this person was someone, and then they become Twilight. They are now Twilight thoroughly and comprehensively. As time went on, in about I would say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I started shifting more into the idea of what I would call a personality filter, where that becoming this character is going to affect you, but you are not a wholly different person. You are recontextualized by having become that character. You still know who you are. You still like the things that you do, but at the same time, you're now contending with this new step that you have to go through in order to express yourself. You know, like I am a messy person. If I turned into Twilight, how does that clash up against her neat freak attitude? Will I be able to stand sitting in my room, messy as it is right now, if I was Twilight right now? I don't think so. And it's interesting to see how stuff like that can manifest. There is a bit of like a debate on like, for some people it's like, are mental changes yes, mental changes no, and it's mostly just a matter of like what people kind of like are looking for, I guess, mainly in the transformation. And whether you want to really explore a story about someone wrestling with the changes and like what it means to them, or if you just want to get into a thing where someone becomes a pony or becomes a character.
Perfect. And I specifically took one of your older comics because I think this one actually shows one of the best representation. Not only is the forming, the background is also changing around them to the point that when the transformation is completely done, they are now completely in Ponyville, and it seems like they have completely forgotten about their former human self and identity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the next one. This is something specifically that a lot of us in the TF community get the. And at a lot of transformation panels I've hosted at FurryCons, when I ask the question, there's kind of two opinions, because there is one, the gradual transformation. So this is someone who specifically likes the process of transforming themselves. So they like seeing transformation portrayed step by step, slow crackling of your bones and your hands and fingers fusing together to become a hoof. And then there is the person that wants to be transformed and quickly wants to get that out of the way. So this is what we call the Poof transformation, where they instantly end up in the new form so they can explore the new body. Daff, you specifically said this was being versus becoming, which I thought was an interesting phrase, and that really does connect to gradual versus Poof transformation. So how about you cover this topic for our listeners?
Yeah, it's something that me and Ace have talked about a lot, actually, because he tends to like to draw the processes a lot more. He draws a lot more mid-TFs. I tend to like the exploration of things after the TF has already happened. Again, like, stories are really, really good for exploring that. But just drawing somebody, like, afterwards, reacting to it, a pony trying to figure out how to do things with their hands, someone after a gender transformation trying to figure out what their new body is like, things like that I tend to like a lot more. Whereas sometimes, not always, when a sequence is drawn for the becoming aspect, it sort of stops after it's over, and you don't really think about what happens after that.
No. As someone who really likes drawing gradual transformations, I agree. It's like it generally stops after the changes are done.
All right. And then I guess this actually leads into the next one, which Icaron and I will, which is the Inanimate Transformation, because while transforming into another anthropomorphic form can be done smoothly, like we've seen with Ace's artwork, where the transition seems very nice and clean. Sometimes transforming from organic to inorganic form, and we're going to include plants and statues and chemical and elemental transformations into this, can be sometimes seen as horror feel. So for inanimate transformation artists like myself, I prefer the Poof to avoid the horror feel, so I could get straight to the final result and have it nice, cute, and friendly. My friend Icaron likes to do the sequences, but in his case, he does things like mannequins and statues where the transition's a bit easier. Is that correct?
Because there's correlation between the forms. TF in general is about experiencing a body that's different from your own, and that happens at varying levels. Some people prefer the things that are more familiar, like Anthros or Pony TF or even Feral TF, but then further down that scale you get inanimate and pool toys, statues, furniture. These things radically differ from not just the human body plan, but the pony body plan as well. And they even exist in different frames of reality, like how does a statue perceive time? And that's like one thing that I did explore in that particular commission that I did for Eventide there on the slide, which was the pony got turned into a statue, and then no one knew that statue was a pony, and then they got put away in storage because whoever found them just didn't want them. And that even happens in the show with Discord, who was petrified by Celestia for a little 1,000 years, and then he said that he was aware and experienced everything around him for the entirety of that 1,000 years that he was a statue. And that really does bring up the question of how do you perceive time when you become something that, by all intents and purposes, shouldn't be able to perceive time in the first place. Like how
And
much
that-
of your human experience transfers into that object, and that's a really interesting thing to explore.
And that connects a lot with the mental transformation because Icaron discussion. When you transform into an object, because in most fiction, the person goes unconscious during that time. It's kind of seen as like a benign death or an ending. And when Medusa turns into a statue, you're essentially dead. But in the cases that we like to explore, you still have your mentality, so you could experience that form. Whether that might be even more of a torture than instantly losing your mind, who knows?
All right.
Yeah, it's entirely
fun to explore.
up to your perspective. You might like it, you might not. It's a relative hell.
All right, so we do need to quickly wind down. So let's go to the final slide. We do want to get some questions and answers, but because we are running out of time, sorry we went a little longer. I'm going to quickly ask some of the questions I see in here, and then I guess one or two of you could quickly give a good response. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. All right. So from Starry Skies, we have: what kind of transformation do you love to see, but almost never get to see in other people's work?
I want to see more detailed animation transformations. There's
All right.
it takes a long time doing animation, but that's honestly something I really want to see more of, like someone doing animation work transformation wise.
And I personally want to see more things where there's not a clear definition between what on one form should transition into a parts on another form. Like, say you might have a pony turning into a motorcycle. Something weird like that where there's no correlation between the parts, so you have to get really creative when you're drawing the transition of that transformation.
All right. And another question says, in your opinion, how long would it take to get used to having a quadruped body, different proportions or a lack of fingers? Well, of course, we've never really transformed in real life, but we do like exploring that concept. So how long do you guys think it will take for you to get used into a new quadruped form?
I'd say less than a week.
Yeah, I don't think it would take all that long. Well, I mean, maybe more than a week. I think, if you basically just go find a doctor, go through some, pony physical therapy, you'll be good.
Well, I think that also depends on how much of your mind is transforming with it. Because all animals have an instinctual ability to move their body in a natural... I mean, like, when a horse comes out of their mother when they're born, they can walk and run in basically seconds. So, like, how much of your brain has become a horse brain will determine how long it's going to take you to get used to having hooves and being on all fours and all things like that.
That's
All right.
Okay.
And then Denim and Venom asks, does dying and becoming a zombie vampire ghost count as transformation? And that's funny because similar to what we're talking about, technically death is inanimate transformation.
I would say
It's
yes.
technically correct, which is the best form of correct.
All right. Okay. I think we should wrap it up now.
but all right. I think that is it. Sorry if we couldn't get through all the questions. Maybe we'll answer it in the chat itself. But let's go to the final slide. And thank you guys very much for joining us for our panel. Hope you guys enjoy it. Feel free to follow us. Our Twitter accounts are there. And any last words from you guys?
Real quick, to answer Jackie-Yo's question, how'd you get comfortable drawing humans? We didn't.
No.
That's why we're drawing ponies.
That's why we turn them into other things.
Yeah. No. I still struggle to draw people.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So final things. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay pony. Yeah. Or become pony.
All right. Have a good time at the rest of your PonyFest. Goodbye, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you for watching. See you.